Drinks, food, art, fun. This is Hops and Spirits Kentucky.
Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. You had a great time with family and friends, and just everything went well, and you got to just celebrate in style. We got a great episode for you this week as we talk with Frazier History Museum in Louisville about some of the cool programs they got going on. But first, some news and notes from around Kentucky. Congratulations go out to Wise Bird Cider in Lexington for being named number 6 on Southern Living Magazine's 14 Best Cider Breweries. The magazine highlighted the Distillery District Spots membership offering, online shop, and muled cider kit. In addition to their drinks, you also need to check out their little fork food truck that's on site too. And it just announced that it is serving brunch on Sundays from noon till 3. So go check that out when you're in Lexington. The Tailspin Ale Festival announced it will take flight on Saturday, March 4th, 2023. It will be the 10th anniversary for the Craft Beer Festival, which features more than 250 beers at historic Bowman Field in Louisville. Early bird tickets for $45 will be available at several Evergreen Liquors locations around Louisville from Thursday, December 1st to Sunday, December 3rd. You can get more information at the Tailspin Ale Fest website. And last but not least, the Western Kentucky Distilling Company announced the groundbreaking of a new $30 million facility in Beaver Dam, Kentucky. The 100% Kentucky-owned distillery is scheduled to open in mid-2023 as the first official distillery in Ohio County, Kentucky. It will bring jobs in quality bourbon and rye whiskey to Western Kentucky with an initial investment of $22 million, with a phase 2 expected to bring the total investment upwards of $30 million. The distillery will launch under the leadership of 8th generation distiller in Kentucky and Jacob Call, who was most recently at Green River. He will serve as the COO and master distiller alongside Kentucky native and president of the distillery, J.D. Edwards. The distillery will focus on contract distilling to start, with signature brands and a visitor center down the road. So look for more coming out of there. But like I said, up next is our Q&A with Frazier History Museum in Louisville. Whether it's bourbon, as they're the official welcome center on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, or their cool Kentucky exhibit, the museum really does have something for everyone. It's a pretty cool place, as you'll hear. That's next. Enjoy.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hops Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here for our Q&A, they're from the Frazier Museum. One is the president and CEO, and that is Andy Treinen. Did I say that right?
You got it.
All right. And then we also have the product and program manager there at Frazier, Haley Hicky. Welcome in, guys.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Well, I appreciate you joining us and taking some time to talk about all the cool things that you guys have going on there at the Frazier History Museum, because I feel like it's so much more than what most would think that happens at a museum when they hear that word. So I guess I'll start with the Cliff Notes version of the museum. I don't want to go too far into everything because we've got some questions, but just the Cliff Notes version for those that might not know what all goes on there at the Frazier Museum.
Yeah, and our staff would agree with you. We're more than just a classic museum. We operate really as an attraction, as a facility rental place, as a museum store, and a parking lot. So we've got several different businesses that feed the museum side of it. But on the museum side, we are where the world meets Kentucky. We are the ideal starting place for a tourism experience in the state of Kentucky. We air the Kentucky Show. We have exhibits that are about Kentucky, including Cool Kentucky, which is more contemporary. It's Jennifer Lawrence and George Clooney and Johnny Depp and all these cool people from our state. And then much more history-oriented stuff. And we're also the official starting point of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, which again fuels that It Starts Here experience. If you're coming to Kentucky for the Bourbon Trail, we help with concierge and helping you manage your trip around the state.
Well, and to get us started, Haley, I guess let's talk about your role. And I believe you also have a second title that goes along with that, product and program manager, right?
I do. I'm also the CMO and Unicorn Wrangler for Bourbon Limited, our members club. We ship direct from distillery to consumer, and as Andy said, being the official starting point for the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, we have so many amazing relationships with distilleries. So when House Bill 415 was passed and it allows us to ship direct to consumer, the Frazier Museum is essentially the marketing arm for that. So we've partnered up with distilleries. We're getting amazing exclusive bourbons, shipping them to our members, and then doing events. Hopefully what I would consider once in a lifetime events.
Here's the box. This is what shows up on your doorstep, of an early version of it. People open up their box, they get this cool, classically curated experience with a bourbon inside that is not available anywhere else in the world. So you can't buy it in a retail store, you can't get it at a restaurant, can't get it through a distributor. It's only available to members of the club.
Yeah, and you're getting a sneak peek because those are just now being shipped to members. So
I like it. That's a talk about a great mail call, so to speak. Getting one of those delivered to you, and we'll go a little further into it here in a second. But even before then, Andy, as the president and CEO of a museum, what do you do on a daily basis?
Well, I get to work with amazing people like Haley and all of our other folks that live into our mission of igniting the human spirit. We tell stories, right? I spent 25 years in television before this, sports and then television news, and then hosted a morning show. And that is similar to my previous life. People are like, what does that have to do with being the president of the museum? We tell stories, right? So it's great that we get to tell stories that last a little longer. They last for a year, or they're permanent stories. But my goal every day as a fairly new museum is to mean more to more people every single day.
Well, and you do that with so many different things. And like Haley said, with her job as the unicorn wrangler there at Bourbon Limited, that is one of your newest things that you guys have launched. And how does it work? I mean, I know you gave the Cliff Notes version of, that you're able to get stuff sent directly, but how do folks sign up? I'm guessing there's a cost. How often does it happen, and so forth?
So to sign up, you go to bourbon.limited. And the sign up page is right there. Membership is 100% free and you can cancel at any time. If you do cancel, then of course you might lose your spot because you go to the end of the line. But it's totally free. And for $200 plus tax and shipping, every other month you're going to get, like what Andy said, is completely exclusive bourbon. And the events that we were talking about. We're going to do virtual events so that everyone can participate, and then we'll do in-person events for those who can get down and to the distillery and see it.
It's all based on the scarcity. All the folks that are huge bourbon enthusiasts, I'm one of them too, and we have the ability to bring great bourbon consumers. We message to a lot of them to these great Kentucky bourbon brands, and it's based on the idea of everybody who goes and stands in line outside of Peerless or Rabbit Hole or Michter's or any of these great brands for their limited launches. We're basically making it easy for them. We're taking things that are scarce. There's only so much of it. And we're delivering it right to your doorstep for a small fee.
Which is what you would expect, but it's a nice convenience that you don't have to go and stand in line, especially I think today as we're talking, it's like 25 degrees outside with a little bit of snow that kept trying to blow there for a while. Now, for the first offering that folks got that chance in line to get, can you talk a little bit about it so folks might have an idea of what to expect down the road if they sign up?
I am so glad you asked, because the first offering is our first, but Peerless's oldest. So Peerless is our neighbor, literally right down the street, and they have been an amazing first partner in this, and they have offered our members the opportunity to buy the first juice that went in the barrels when they open their distillery. So it's the oldest bourbon they've ever bottled, and it's just for us. It's
really amazing. Their master distiller, Caleb, we're asking for tasting notes, and you don't really have them until it's a small batch reserve. So until they mingle these barrels together, they don't know exactly what they're going to get. And Caleb was so excited when he tasted it. He called Corky Taylor and Carson Taylor, the two owners and founders, in to say, this is really great bourbon. You got to come taste it. So they had a little party there at Peerless, and then they sent us these little tasting bottles, and I can assure you it is outstanding. You will get a full-size bottle if you're in the member club, but these are for us to share with folks and to promote the program.
And then you kind of mentioned you have great partners. Are you allowed to say who those are, or who you're hopeful for, or what can folks expect as Bourbon Limited continues to roll out?
Yeah, so great question. The Kentucky Bourbon Trail is now like 39 distilleries. It is expanding all the time. People who are not even Kentucky brands, and there are a few of those, are coming to Kentucky because of the value. They say 95% of the bourbon in the world is made in Kentucky. 100% of the good bourbon is made in Kentucky. So everybody wants to come to Kentucky. Peerless is our first launch. Wilderness Trail is our second, and Haley was the first to see that bottle. She was at the distillery yesterday, interviewed some of the owners and master distillers, and they sent back.
Ooh.
And that's got the Bourbon Limited logo on the side there. Again, they're doing not only bourbons that are exclusive to people in the club, but that's a rye, but also bottling that has the logo on it, or some of our other partners are doing really cool stuff. Rabbit Hole's doing an artist label that they're commissioning an artist to paint something about Kentucky on the label. We're working with Blue Run, one of the new and emerging great high rye bourbons, and Jim Rutledge, the longtime master distiller at Four Roses, is the master behind their product. So yeah, we've got a number lined up for our first year, and we had 2 meetings this week for new brands that are coming on all the time.
That is awesome. So a little bit of everything, and something that folks will get to experience a whole variety of bourbons and whiskeys from Kentucky. And it's not just bourbon that is at the museum. I know you also launched a new exhibit called Kentucky Rivalries as well.
Yeah, just the beginning of November, and this is an exhibit kind of based on Kentucky's rivalrous spirit that dates all the way back to the Hatfield McCoys, who were actually inspiration. Many don't know, for the show Family Feud. You know, the show Family Feud, that was inspired by the Hatfield McCoy dispute. The families actually later went on the show in the late 70s, and they had their cash prizes, but also battled for a pig, which was the original dispute in the feud. But mostly it's a sports story. The University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville have a huge heated rivalry, several national championships between them. We've got several high school rivalries that date back to the 1800s. DuPont Manual and Manual is the oldest, back to 1893, I think. So it's been a ton of fun. It's really highly interactive. The high five was invented here in Louisville, Kentucky. Did you know that?
I did not.
Haley got to high five the original high fiver, Wiley Brown.
I did. And he was very sweet, because there was no shot I was going to be able to jump up and get his high five. So he kind of like lowered it down, but yeah, it was great.
So they do. Wiley tells the story in the exhibit. He was here for the opening. It was back in the early 80s when Louisville was super athletic, and they had the high flying dunking team. And people used to give five. And Derek Smith and Wiley Brown said, "Up high." And that was captured on national television. You hear Al McGuire talking about it. Like, you know, like we just assume there's always been the high five. There wasn't the high five before that time.
Before the 80s. Isn't that crazy to think about? Yeah.
It is wild. And that's what's so cool about seeing stuff that you all are able to do, is to tell those stories. And like you mentioned, one of the biggest stories, if you're coming to Kentucky, one of the famous B's is the bourbon, and you're the official the welcome center, the official starting point for the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. How did that all come about? Because I feel like that's a really cool thing to be part of.
Yeah, it really is, and it's so important for us, and helps us to expand our brand. The chairman of our board, Mac Brown, is a Brown from Brown-Forman. He worked with Chris Morris, who is the master distiller at Woodford Reserve. After our founder passed, we were a history museum, and they were looking for a new place for the museum to land. So they started working on this bourbon tourism experience. Bourbon tourism in Kentucky has gone from 700 to 900 to 1.2 to 1.7 to 2.1 million this year. People that come to Kentucky for bourbon tourism. All the distillers do a great job telling the story of how to make the bourbon, but we tell the story of why Kentucky, bourbon, the category. So Louisville Slugger's here, the Muhammad Ali Museum's here, the Kentucky Derby Museum's here. I was director of marketing at the time. All of those great attractions have something we don't have, in that their brand is in their name. We're the Frazier History Museum. We're named after our founder, Owsley Brown Frazier. So to attach ourselves with the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, which does have a national and international brand, was really important. So we built a multi-million-dollar exhibit, and there were a lot of different parts of the state that wanted to be the official starting point. We had to get that designation in contract with the Kentucky Distillers Association. I was one of the people that presented at the board meeting. Basically, in any partnership, you have to offer value. And what we were offering was a chance to manage the concierge service. They do a lot of legislation. They get laws changed that favor the industry. They didn't have people to answer the phones every day and to manage people's tourism experience, and we did. So we built the Welcome Center, got that designation, and it has been really, really important to what we do. And there are so many different revenue streams that come in because of that designation.
Well, and then you also,
No, that was great.
and I was going to say, and because of that, you also have things such as the Spirit of Kentucky Bourbon exhibition there as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So essentially, the majority of the third floor of our museum is dedicated to the bourbon industry, and it's fabulous. You can walk through and it discuss the water and the limestone and the earth and why Kentucky is just the perfect place to make bourbon. So it's very interactive and very cool. And then we have a display of mini stills, a bunch of vintage bottles, and then we have the bourbon hall, and it is incredible. We have a bottle of every single expression being produced in Kentucky at this time on display. And if you're in the know, there's a secret little panel. Can I tell that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a secret panel that leads to a speakeasy.
Ooh.
So you're just walking down the hall and it's just magnificent on its own. But then to push a panel in and go into this awesome speakeasy is it's great.
Yeah, it's really cool. Bourbon is America's only native spirit. There is no other native spirit, and that's, by legislation. What happened was, Kentucky shares something that Scotland has, and there's this limestone shelf, and Ireland has the same thing. And that limestone shelf filters out the iron, which is really bad for distilling spirits. So there was and we have more internal waterways than any state in the U.S. other than Alaska. So we have water in through this limestone as a source, but then a means to transport. So that was a big part of how bourbon happened. There was also a incentive that rye whiskey with Pennsylvania, all those great distillers that came to America as immigrants east of here, when they came west, the plentiful crop was corn. And so by designation, bourbon is at least 50% corn in the mash bill. People were given land if they agreed to grow corn and build a structure.
And Kentucky's perfect because of the climate. Like you were just talking about, it's like 25 degrees out today, and it was 80 2 weeks ago. It's like a sweltering 110 with humidity in the summer. So what differentiates us again from the countries that you mentioned, with the climate changes we have, we can make a fantastic bourbon in just a few years compared to 20 years.
Yeah, and I think most of your viewers and listeners probably know, but bourbon goes into the barrel as a clear spirit. It's corn whiskey, and there's no color, but that climate change makes it go in and out of the wood in the barrel more frequently, forces in, out, in, out, in, out, and that's what brings the great aroma and taste of Kentucky bourbon.
Can you tell we love what we do?
I just a little bit, and that's probably what folks will realize when they get there is just the amount of attention and care that goes in there. And also, like you said earlier, it's not just exhibitions and things like that. There is a lot of living history and so forth, such as, you know, with your bourbon experience, you can go to cocktail classes, the flight
Yes.
club, and so much more that you can do and experience.
Yeah, it's great. Do you know about the flight club? Do you want to tell them about?
Sure.
Go for it.
Jonathan, do you know about it?
A little bit. I've read a little bit about it, but I just love the name no matter what.
Yeah, it's so great.
So some of those things, you know, you listen to your customers, right? We originally built a tasting experience. It was called the Ready, Set, Go experience. And it was based on the idea that we are getting people ready, set to go on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. So they got to learn what it is that makes it bourbon. They get a tasting of 3 different things. They get an education, get a little degree, and then off you go with knowledge to go to all the distilleries. Those are successful. They sell a whole lot. We work with Louisville Tourism to create the Old Fashioned as the official cocktail. We wanted people to be able to come in and craft their own cocktail. These are for the not as snobby advanced bourbon enthusiasts. Like, this is the big audience. Make a cocktail, have fun with your friends. Well, this year, at the beginning of the year, I'm in 2 meetings the same day. One's with the Kentucky Distillers Association, one is with Louisville Tourism, and they both identify what has become a problem in downtown Louisville, which is people are coming to Kentucky and they're coming to Main Street. They want to go on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, but they hadn't booked anything in advance. And so there is more demand than inventory right now. So we challenged our team, and they weren't thrilled at first when we did. Like, we got to build more tasting experiences, and they have to be done in 3 weeks, you know, in a tough staffing climate. And then we developed these little cards that we gave to all the other distillers on Main Street and all the hotels. And when they have someone who says, gosh, I'm disappointed I can't get in, they say, well, you can get in down the street, hit this QR code. So we have a whole lot of walk-up traffic to experience Flight Club, the old-fashioned cocktail experience, and unfiltered truth tasting, and then that Ready, Set, Go tasting.
That is awesome. And it just goes back to being able to experience things, try new things, and so forth. And you know, you even have stuff such as like the Pappy Van Winkle family collection there, and you mentioned Cool Kentucky. So I mean, it's bourbon, but it's also history to Kentucky and even contemporary history.
Yeah, Cool Kentucky was a product of COVID, but Todd Spencer, who is the president of Doe Anderson's a friend of mine, and they worked on us on building this brand where the world meets Kentucky. And he's been working to try to find something we could do, and we came up with Cool Kentucky because I basically say it's aha moments about the state of Kentucky. People come in and they go, oh my gosh, I didn't know George Clooney was from here. Oh, are those his overalls from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Well, yes, they are. And Jennifer Lawrence is from here, and Johnny Depp, and here's the boat that Tori Merton rowed across the Atlantic as the first woman to ever row across the Atlantic. There's a Corvette sitting there. The only place you can buy a Corvette in the world is in Bowling Green, Kentucky. All the other museums around the state are represented inside. And, you know, we called their directors and said, hey, what will you give us for this? And they're like, I don't know, what do you want? What's going to make people really want to come to your place? So it's got to be really cool. So that's kind of what Cool Kentucky is. It's a great introduction to the state for people who come here and inspires them to want to stay in the state with their tourism dollars. That's really important because Louisville Tourism, Kentucky State Tourism bureaus are funded by heads and beds, hotel taxes. So that makes them want to send people here because they want to, then they can go to 3 or 4 other places that they learn are interesting. So that's a really important exhibit for what we do. And then you mentioned, what was the other one? I lost.
You also have stuff as like the Pappy Van Winkle family collection.
Yeah.
I mean, all sorts of things.
I spoke with Julian Van Winkle yesterday morning, and he's like, how long are we going to keep Pappy up? You are the first to know. Are you ready to find out? Other than Julian Van Winkle, who created the Pappy Van Winkle brand, that exhibit will be on view for 1 more year through the end of calendar 23. And then we'll replace it with another thematic bourbon exhibit. But that is such a cool exhibit. everybody knows the Pappy Van Winkle brand. My favorite thing in it is Pappy used to golf, and his dog was his caddy. And people are like, oh, come on, that's not true. We have pictures of him with his dog carrying his bag behind him at the Audubon Country Club here. And we have the golf clubs that he carried. And of course, all the brands, there's every Pappy, which people are like, oh my gosh, that case is amazing. It is amazing. It's worth a lot of money. Then there's another case that is originals, all the brands that Pappy worked on when he was the master distiller and salesman at Stitzel Weller. That's worth about 10 times more than the Pappy Van Winkle one. So it's great stories, and it's fun to partner with really cool people in the industry and fun people throughout the state and telling stories.
And then you also have some new ones that I know for sure are coming in 2023. I believe one is the Barrels of Heart that'll launch in February.
Yes, we just had a meeting about that yesterday. We're working with Morgan Hancock, and she has been a fantastic partner. So essentially she procured 20 barrels and has interviewed over 100 artists and has chosen 20 of them to decorate, about 20 of them to decorate to paint and decorate these barrels. And we're going to display them. And I say about 20 of them because they're, in one situation, I know there are 3 artists that are working together on it. But they're going to be displayed throughout Poole, Kentucky, and you can come in and we're going to get the public to vote on their favorite. And it's going to benefit 3 different charities that help feed and offer food and shelter for people here in Kentucky that need help.
And it's going to benefit the artists, specifically the one who wins.
Yes, yes. But it's really very interesting. Like, one of the first gentlemen that she featured is an artist that I believe he works as a nurse, and he has 4 children, and 3 of his children are autistic, and he started finger painting as a way to escape and
That's awesome.
and he paints these amazing things using just his fingers, which blows my mind because I can drink and talk about bourbon, but I can't paint a thing. So
I totally understand what you mean. And it's a cool thing, and I love to hear stuff like that. And for those that go, well, I've been there before, I've been back. What makes me want to come back to the Frazier Museum? I'm guessing it's stuff like that, and the new things that you'll see almost every time.
Yes, new things all the time, and I'm not sure when was the last time you were here, Jonathan?
It's been a long time.
Okay, well, we want to invite you back because it has changed so much. It changes every single year. But what you might not realize is about 6 or 7 years ago, we were an arms museum, and the entire museum was filled with guns and armory and toy soldiers.
Yeah.
And it has evolved and changed so much. I'm going to brag on Andy. Under Andy's leadership, he's changed it, and it's awesome.
It's our staff that's done an amazing job. And Haley's
leadership.
Well, thank you. Haley's relatively new to our staff, but she did have like her parents and friends in town because she moved back and said, there's something going on at the Frazier. So there is this energy about what's happening here. And honestly, if you were here more than 5 years ago, you would not recognize the place. The entrance is different. You walk in a different door to get here. There are so many things that change. Even our permanent exhibits like Cool Kentucky, we're about to give it a real shot in the arm with all new stories because we take things on loan for that one from other places, and then we change it out every 2 years. So it is, Mr. Frazier, our founder, was amazing, and he had this passion for historic arms, and we still have some of them. We have Teddy Roosevelt's big stick. We've got an arrow and quiver from Geronimo. We've got George Washington's long arm rifle. So we still have some of that really incredible historic stuff. And that's all displayed now in the Founders Gallery. But what we didn't have when it was all that was repeatability, which goes back to your question, what is new, what changes. We now have these evolving stories, and we also have Kentucky pride, which goes a long, long way. So where the world meets Kentucky is a draw for tourists coming in, but also a big draw for everybody here who wants to show off to their family who's visiting over Thanksgiving or Christmas what it's all about. And that helps.
I'm glad you touched on the word family, because I was going to jump in and say we've talked about bourbon so much, but this really is a very family-oriented museum. There are a lot of exhibits that are very interactive that the kids love. I've got 3 kids of my own, 3 boys, and they love coming here. In the Cool Kentucky exhibit, we have what would you call it? It's you stand up on a stair and you take a picture, and the way they have it set up, it looks like you're going in to dunk a ball. It's so cool. And then we have Papa shots where they can battle and throw footballs, and like I said, just very, very interesting.
Lewis and Clark is
Lewis and Clark.
very family friendly, and we're looking out a window right now at the Falls of the Ohio. It is the reason Louisville is here, and the reason that 15 people on that original Lewis and Clark expedition were from Louisville, Kentucky. It's a Kentucky story that then spanned throughout. York was from Kentucky. So many of the people there. And so we've got a real interactive, family friendly, where you get to take the expedition. You go through, tunnels and into teepees, and get to have that full experience. Go fishing, sit in a canoe, all those things.
Yeah. And my boys love the shop too. They have tons of really cool, like old school toys and things that, honestly, I grew up with, but it's like, it's cool and new to them.
It's nostalgic and it's fun, and it brings back nostalgic. And it brings back memories. And you guys answered kind of my last question, because there truly is something for everyone there, whether it's the bourbon lover that has kids and is bringing them along the journey too, or just, folks that are in town to check things out. I mean, there really is something for everyone there.
It is the most common reaction that we get, whether people come here because they're coming for a wedding or a corporate event, or coming, for a facility rental thing, or a party, or one of our bourbon events. Every time someone says, I had no idea that you had all this stuff. I had no idea. We did a free membership campaign a couple of years ago and picked up 24,000 extra members, just because we understood that people didn't know who we were and what we did. And we are continuing that effort, and we are going to do in 2023 a big focus on expanding our brand statewide. So everybody knows we are where the world meets Kentucky. We're going to actually tell a story about each of Kentucky's 120 counties in a rich and full and fulfilling way.
I love that. And Andy and Haley, I appreciate you taking the time to tell the story of all the stories that you have there at the Frazier Museum. And this was so much fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great to be with you. Good luck to you.
Good luck, and come see us soon.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.